Right behind me are two of the best-selling compact crossovers here in America, the Toyota RAV4 and the Honda CR-V. Now, these two SUVs have been duking it out for nearly 25 years. Toyota introduced the RAV4 all the way back in 1996, while Honda was just a year behind back in 1997 with the all-new CR-V. Now, last year, Toyota managed to sell around 450,000 RAV4s in the States. That makes it the best-selling compact crossover SUV, while Honda, they were right behind Toyota, selling 384,000 CR-Vs in all of 2019. Now, one of the reasons why I think the Toyota outsells the Honda is because Toyota has been offering a hybrid version of this vehicle since 2013. Drivers who buy the hybrid essentially get a car that gets well over 30 MPG, now 40 MPG on this new version. So for 2020, Honda is introducing a hybridized version of the CR-V finally. It gets about 38 MPG and offers around 212 horsepower. So if you guys are looking to buy a new family crossover, should you be looking at the RAV4 hybrid or should you be putting the new CR-V hybrid on your list? Stay tuned to find out. Now, Honda may have been the first manufacturer to come to the States with a hybrid vehicle back in 1999. Toyota followed up a couple years later with the Prius in 2001. And to be honest, the Toyota has always been more of the leader in the hybrid space. The company has always sold way more hybrid vehicles over Honda with their hybrid technology. And let's start with the RAV4 because we're looking at under the hood of these vehicles, and the hybrid version of the RAV is essentially the one to get from Toyota if you guys are looking at this vehicle because it's the most powerful RAV4 and the most fuel efficient RAV4. It combines a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder that runs on the Atkinson cycle. The engine itself is basically the same derivative of the gasoline engine in the base model RAV4. And when you combine it with the electric motors, this car makes 219 horsepower. And of course, Toyota does not quote the torque figures on their hybrid vehicles. That actually makes the RAV4 hybrid one of the most powerful in the compact SUV segment if you guys look at hybrids in general. Now, Toyota only offers the RAV4 hybrid with all-wheel drive. The all-wheel drive system is powered by an electric motor that's separate from the actual drivetrain. So if you guys don't have any battery power in this thing, it essentially will divert back to being a front-wheel drive car. It all is combined through an eCVT, so a unique CVT transmission. Toyota basically says this is the quickest RAV4 and it gets the best MPG at 41 in the city and 38 on the highway. This is still tops in the class in terms of numbers, and the Toyota will allow you to tow a maximum of around 1,750 pounds. Now, in contrast, Honda has always kind of struggled a little bit with their hybrid technology. For the longest time, the integrated motor assist IMA was just so behind compared to Toyota's because it didn't have the ability to actually power a Honda vehicle without its internal combustion engine coming on. That is no longer the case with this new two-motor hybrid system. This is the same powertrain that we get from the Accord. It marries actually a smaller gasoline engine. It's a 2-liter four-cylinder with their VTEC technology. It runs on the Atkinson cycle as well, and the engine by itself makes 143 horsepower, which is about 40 less versus the gas engine in the Toyota. The Honda, however, has a stronger electric motor. The electric motor in this car makes 181 horsepower on its own and 232 pound-feet of torque. The electric motor in the RAV only makes about 118 horsepower, so you have a bigger gas engine, but a less powerful electric motor. Honda went the other direction. Combined, the CR-V technically has a little bit less power, 212 horsepower, but Honda does quote the torque figures at 232 pound-feet of torque. Now, the interesting thing about the CR-V, its transmission isn't necessarily a CVT or a direct drive transmission. It has characteristics of both. It depends on how you're driving this vehicle. So Honda doesn't like to call this thing a CVT. Now, what you basically need to know, all CR-V hybrids are all-wheel drive. It's the first time we're seeing an all-wheel drive hybrid and also the first time we're seeing a hybridized SUV. This is the very first hybridized SUV in Honda's lineup. Now, of course, fuel economy is not necessarily as good as the RAV4. This is rated at 40 in the city and 35 on the highway, or 38 combined. So it's about 2 MPG less. I'm going to basically say that's probably because this car has a real four-wheel drive system where the four-wheel drive, the rear drive axle is actually connected to the entire powertrain. It doesn't have a separate electric motor, which means even if the battery was discharged on this car, the CR-V will continue to be all-wheel drive, or this car will divert to front-wheel drive. Now, both cars weigh right around 3,700 pounds. This car, however, is not rated to tow, so don't even think about towing with it. Surprisingly, even though Toyota has been doing battery technology for longer, this car uses an older nickel metal hydride battery, while Honda actually puts a lithium-ion battery in this vehicle. Unfortunately, I don't have the specs for both vehicles. Not all the manufacturers tend to talk about the specs of the hybrid size or the battery size when you're talking about hybrid SUVs. So styling is always subjective, but since I have both the RAV4 and the CR-V together, I figured I would talk about the design, what I personally think of the vehicles. Now, of course, you guys know this generation RAV4 very well. Toyota introduced it for 2019. It's the 5th generation of the RAV4, which is actually the same time frame where Honda is with the CR-V. This is also the 5th generation model. The RAV4, when this model first came out, actually reminds me a lot of the CR-V, from the shape of the headlights to the design of the grille. It's kind of just been flipped versus the CR-V's grille. But as you can see, this RAV4 Hybrid Limited is the top of the line version. It comes standard with LED headlights. LED headlights are standard on every RAV4. However, you're probably noticing it has these halogen projector fog lights. The turn signals are also just an incandescent design. I do like the look of the grille for this vehicle. If you guys go for like an XSE trim, it has a slightly different look. But overall, I definitely see some influence here to the CR-V, but you could also say it resembles some of Toyota's trucks, like the Tacoma, like the 4Runner. Toyota definitely went with a much more macho, much more masculine look for this generation. Now, in contrast, the CR-V definitely has that crossover look to it. It looks a little bit more feminine, a little softer design. Every CR-V hybrid thankfully now comes standard with full LED headlights, which is not the case if you guys go for the gas model. The grille has also been slightly changed. It has a blue Honda badge in the center, kind of like what Toyota does for their Toyota emblem on the hybrid versions. And you can see here, Honda actually does one up on the Toyota for the fog lights. If you guys go for the EX trims and up, you'll have these 5-point LEDs, which definitely make the front end look more expensive for the CR-V. I also like the fact that you have LED turn signals where you have incandescent turn signals on this particular one. Thankfully, if you guys are looking for the safety features, both of them come standard with their company's active safety suite. So you've got Toyota Safety Sense P 2.0, which is standard on the RAV4, and then you have Honda Sensing standard on the CR-V, which means you're gonna have automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, and I believe Toyota, however, makes you pay extra for the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, whereas Honda typically gives that to you as part of the Honda Sensing package. Now, looking at the side profile of the RAV4 and CR-V, these are both, remember, compact crossover SUVs, which has seriously replaced family cars or mid-size family cars for a lot of Americans. And they're actually both roughly around the same size. I want to start with the RAV4. Its wheelbase is around 105.9 inches long, so it's technically an inch longer than the CR-Vs, but at 180.9 inches long, this is still on the shorter end versus a lot of the other competitors. You can see Toyota went with a much more boxier look. You have an 18-inch wheel design on this limited trim wrapped in 225 with tires, and Toyota says you get around 8.1 inches of ground clearance. I actually really like the design of this RAV4 when it came out. They really went with a much more, boxier look versus the, more crossover feminine looks of the previous generation. Now, in contrast, this CR-V has been around a little bit longer. It came out back in 2017. So the overall profile hasn't changed. It is about 2 inches longer versus the RAV4 at 182.3 inches long, but its wheelbase is relatively short at 104.7 inches long. The Honda does one up on the Toyota with bigger wheels and tires. These are a 19-inch wheel that you can't get on the hybrid model, wrapped in bigger 235 width tires, which look better, but I also think it's probably contributing to the fact that the MPG is a little bit lower on this car. Honda says you get around 8.2 inches of ground clearance in the CR-V, so both have roughly the same kind of off-road capability. So the CR-V and RAV4 may look a little similar from the front fascias, but when you look at the rear, you can say they both have their own unique design to them. The CR-V in general kind of has a Volvo-ish look to it. I really like the fact that Honda put full LED taillights on the back of this vehicle, except for the reverse lights. But as you can see, it's got an actual LED for the turn signal and LED brake light. It's actually a really attractive design. I've always liked the way this generation CR-V has looked when it came out back in 2017. You can see the hybrid model has a subtle little hybrid badge on the back here that goes with the one on the fender. And then under here, you can see Honda has changed out the rear bumper. They've hidden the exhaust pipe. You still have kind of that cladding because most SUVs have cladding. And overall, it's a relatively clean looking design. Now, looking at the RAV4, you can see Toyota definitely went with a much more rugged look to the back. It kind of resembles a little bit something like a Toyota 4Runner. It definitely looks the more adventure off-road capable vehicle. Toyota also offers LED taillights, but as you can see, the turn signal is just an incandescent. The reverse light is also an incandescent. Toyota also puts lots of cladding on the back. It actually looks like there's a little bit more cladding versus the CR-V because the cladding actually goes into the actual tailgate. And unlike most hybrid vehicles, Toyota actually keeps the dual exhaust outlet on the hybrid version, which I actually like. I think it gives the RAV4 a little bit of a sportier look. So at the rear, I actually might prefer the look of the RAV4, even though the Honda gets an extra point for having LED turn signals. Now, in terms of the trunk capacity, these are SUVs after all. And they both actually offer roughly right around the same space. Now, the one thing I'm noticing right off the bat, the Honda has a much lower load floor, which is probably going to be easier if you're shorter, if you have to pick up heavier items to get into the trunk. The CR-V hybrid actually is reduced slightly versus the gas-only version. You get around 33 cubic feet of space with the seats up. Fold everything down, you get around 68 cubic feet of space. Now, in contrast, the Toyota technically has more space with the seats up. The company says you get around 37 cubic feet of space, which is pretty good. Fold everything down, you get around 69 cubic feet of space. So again, very comparable in amounts of space, but I will say that some of you may appreciate the lower load floor on the Honda. So obviously the exterior design is an important factor, but most people are probably wondering what's the interior like. Now, obviously, both cars have their own unique sets of interiors. If you're looking to see like a full review, be sure to click on the link below. I'll include a link that includes the review of my RAV4 interior and my CR-V interior. However, this is going to be kind of a brief overview. Now, looking at the CR-V, you can see this one here in the Radiant Red offers a gray leather interior. I don't love the fake wood grain trim that Honda is putting around this interior, but you can see it's pretty much the standard stuff as you get in the gas CR-V. You have the 7-inch Honda Link infotainment system. You have an electronic parking brake. You have that new electronic shifter there that controls the eCVT and direct drive transmission. Honda also added a wireless phone charger this year. They redesigned the center console so it actually works a little bit better. And the seats are pretty supportive. They're pretty comfortable. They are also only heated. Honda does not offer cooled seats, and they also don't offer a panoramic sunroof. But overall, the interior offers a lot to like. Lots of space in this car, and it's very easy to use. Now, in contrast, the RAV4 got a completely new interior last year, and as you can see, Toyota definitely went with a much more rugged kind of look to this vehicle. You can see it's got these big, large knobs in there with this unique kind of rubberized finish on them. This particular one here is the limited grade, so it's kind of more the luxury grade, but I like how Toyota didn't actually put any fake wood in this car like Honda did on the CR-V. The interior itself is also pretty nice. The seats offer heated and cooled. You get a panoramic sunroof, which is an option. And then Toyota also offers a full 360 camera. So those are features you cannot get on the CR-V because Honda technically reserves that for Acura products. The one thing I also noticed, the RAV4 interior doesn't feel quite as spacious as the CR-V. You also don't get quite as much storage space as the CR-V, whereas, you know, sometimes the Honda can be criticized for feeling a little bit like a minivan, but it's going to be a much more useful vehicle if you guys are planning to take this thing on longer road trips because the Toyota feels a little bit more cramped. I also think that the seats in the Honda are slightly more comfortable for me, so kind of try both seats out before you kind of make your final decision. Now, going to the back seat, let me first start with the RAV4. Now, Toyota says there's a fairly good amount of space back there. You get around 37.8 overall inches back here of legroom, which is pretty good. The seats themselves also, they offer a heated seat function, which is nice. You get a seat that is pretty comfortable. The materials in here are also nice. You have rear seat air vents and 2 USB ports back there as well. And then as you can see there, the floor is not completely flat in the center, so that will limit, you know, putting an actual adult in the center seat of the RAV4. Now, in contrast, the CR-V has one of the largest back seats in the segment. Honda says you get around 39.5 inches of legroom, so just under 40 inches. And you can immediately tell there is more space back here. The floor is almost completely flat, so if you have to put 3 across in here, it's very nice. The one thing the CR-V doesn't have is heated rear seats. Toyota offers that in the RAV4, but you do get rear seat air vents and 2 USB ports, and then you get more of that fake wood grain trim, which I don't love. But if you're looking for a bigger back seat, the CR-V is the one to get. So now the moment you've all been waiting for, which one of these two compact crossovers is actually the better buy? Now, you probably noticed I didn't actually drive both of these cars. Now, I will say that I've driven the RAV4 hybrid many times, so if you guys want to see my full driving impressions on that vehicle, be sure to click on the link in the description below. There is a driving impressions embargo on the CR-V hybrid until March 17th at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so be sure to come back at that time where I'll have a full review of this vehicle. I'll talk about how it drives, my overall impressions on it. But in this video, I want to basically come to a conclusion on which one I actually like. Now, obviously, as you guys saw, both of these vehicles have their strengths and weaknesses. The RAV4 offers a lot more in terms of features like the heated and cooled seats, the panoramic sunroof, the 360 camera. The CR-V has more space on the inside in terms of the actual room in the front. There's more space in the rear, and you also get a lot of value. Now, speaking of which, with the pricing, the RAV4 starts at around $28,800. That's actually about $1,000 more than the CR-V LX, the base model hybrid version of this car. Now, of course, when you add all the options up, this CR-V here, the touring grade, stickers for a little over $37,000, where this particular RAV4 is the most loaded way you can get a RAV4 hybrid today. It stickers for just under $42,000, which is a good chunk of change more versus the Honda, nearly $5,000 more expensive. And some of you may argue, is the panoramic sunroof and the ventilated seats and the 360 camera worth that extra charge? For some of you, that may be a solid no, but for me, I like the additional features. I also like how quick the RAV4 hybrid is. Remember, this is actually quicker versus the gas model, and in terms of the EPA numbers, this one gets slightly better MPG. So for me, I would probably pick the RAV4 hybrid and sacrifice the space because I don't necessarily need the space of the CR-V. And I also like the fact that Toyota offers the RAV4 in several different flavors, including a sportier version that's called the XSE hybrid. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my comparison between the very, very new CR-V hybrid and the also new RAV4 hybrid. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.